The book of John, chapter 2, day 2. Today I'm reading from the Message Bible, which is a contemporary language Bible. So it sounds like how we speak today. All right. 3 days later, there was a wedding in the village of Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there. Jesus and his disciples were guests also. When they started running low on wine at the wedding banquet, Jesus' mother said to him, "They're just about to run out of wine." Jesus said, "Is that any of our business, Mother? Yours or mine? This isn't my time. Don't push me." She went ahead anyway, telling the servants, "Whatever he tells you to do, just do it." 6 stoneware water pots were there, used by the Jews for ritual washing. Each held 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus ordered the servants, "Fill the pots with water," and they filled them to the brim. "Now fill your pitchers and take them to the host," Jesus said, and they did. When the host tasted the water that had become wine, he didn't know what had just happened, but the servants, of course, they knew. He called out to the bridegroom, "Everybody I know begins with their finest wines, and after the guests have had their fill, brings in the cheap stuff. But you've saved the best till now." This act in Cana of Galilee was the first sign Jesus gave, the first glimpse of his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum along with his mother, brothers, and disciples, and stayed several days. A little bit of history. Jewish traditions were very much like Indian traditions. Their weddings were grand feasts. The whole village was called, the whole town was called. They served the best they could afford, and everybody went. Yeshua, Jesus, was very much part of his culture. He wasn't someone who was aloof from the order of the day. Till this situation where he changed water into wine, till this time, he was just one of his mother's children. Oh, that's another thing. Mary had many children after Yeshua. Yeshua was the only one who was not born of man. Yeshua, Jesus, was the only one of her children who didn't have an earthly father. Mary, like all of us, was very much human and very much had human relations with Joseph after Jesus' birth. All right, let's move on. When the Passover feast, celebrated each spring by the Jews, was about to take place, Yeshua traveled up to Jerusalem. He found the temple teeming with people selling cattle and sheep and doves. The loan sharks were also there in full strength. These are the money changers. Some history about this. The Passover feast was a celebration where the Jews remembered what God had done for them in Egypt when he commanded Moses to paint the door frames of every Jewish home with the blood of the sacrificial lamb. And when the Spirit of God passed over Egypt, all the firstborns of the Jewish people were saved, and all the firstborns of the Egyptians were killed. So that was the Passover. The Spirit of God passed over them and saved them. So every year, every Jewish person from all over the world had to travel to Jerusalem to pay their taxes, to make sacrifices, to thank God, to create a remembrance. And like we see in temples all over the world, they had made it into a business. You couldn't sacrifice any lamb or dove or sheep which had any spots on it. It had to be a pure white animal. So they minted money on these sacrificial animals. The people coming from outside of Palestine, outside of Jerusalem, had foreign currency. So the currency had to be converted. And so the money lenders and the loan sharks were minting money. So this is what Yeshua did. When he walked in there, he was horrified to see that the temple of God had become a marketplace. And this is what he did. He put together a whip out of strips of leather and chased them all out of the temple, stampeding the sheep and cattle, upending the tables of the loan sharks, spilling coins left and right. He told the dove merchants, "Get your things out of here. Stop making my father's house into a shopping mall." That's when his disciples remembered the scripture that said, "Zeal for your house consumes me." But the Jews were so upset. They asked, "What credentials can you present to justify this?" Because he wasn't just behaving badly in the temple, he was spoiling the business. He was going in there and telling them, "Get your business out of here. This is not a marketplace. This is a place of worship." He was a rebel rouser. Yeshua was not what people make him out to be. He wasn't this. He was someone who went in there and changed all their systems. He called them all hypocrites. He pointed out their crimes. He called them whitewashed tombs. That means you look pure on the outside and from the inside you're rotting. He was not what people believe he was. And so he said to them, "Tear down this temple, and in 3 days I will put it back together." They were indignant. It took 46 years to build this temple, and you're going to rebuild it in 3 days? But Yeshua was not talking about their physical temple. He was talking about his body, the temple of God. Later, after he was raised from the dead in 3 days, his disciples remember what he had said. They put 2 and 2 together, and they believed both what was written in Scripture and what Yeshua said. During the time he was in Jerusalem, those days of the Passover feast, many people noticed the signs he was displaying, and seeing, they pointed straight to God. They entrusted their lives to him. But Yeshua didn't entrust his life to them. He knew them inside out. He knew how untrustworthy man is. He didn't need any help in seeing right through them. This was a really short chapter. But let me see if there's anything more I can give to you. Let's give you some history. The temple tax had to be paid in local currency, so foreigners had to have their money changed. The money changers would charge exorbitant exchange fees. The people were also required to make sacrifices for their sins. Because of the long journey, many could not bring their own animals. So some who brought animals would have them rejected for imperfections. So animal merchants would do flourishing business in the temple courtyard. The price of sacrificial animals was much higher in the temple area than anywhere else. Jesus, Yeshua, was so angry at the dishonest, greedy practices of the money changers and the merchants. And he particularly disliked their presence on the temple grounds. They were making a mockery of God's house of worship. The anger that Yeshua displayed was righteous anger. It wasn't anger birthed in fear. It was anger birthed by righteousness. You are making my Father's house a marketplace. Thanks be to God for his word. Have a wonderful Sunday. God bless you all.